Customer numbers doubled, revenue increased by 20%. At first glance, it looks like growth. But does the data really support that conclusion? The data shows that the number of customers increased, and that total revenue went up. But it does not show how much each customer spent, or whether the business became more profitable. A common conclusion would be that each customer spent more than before. However, that claim is not supported by the data. To evaluate that conclusion, we would need more information. We don't know how much each customer spent, whether customer spending changed, or which customers made up the increase. One possible explanation is that new customers may have spent less per visit. This could explain why revenue increased less than the number of customers. More customers do not necessarily mean more spending per customer. Always check what the data actually shows. Here is monthly sales before and after a new product launch. It's tempting to conclude that the new product caused the increase in sales. Sales increased after the launch, but timing alone does not show causation. Other changes may have occurred at the same time. Sales could have increased due to advertising, seasonal demand, price changes, or one-time events. The data shows that sales increased after the launch. It does not prove why. Before moving on, think about this question. What information would you need to support a causal claim? Here are some examples of information that could help support a causal claim. Which claim is best supported by the data? The best supported claim is that sales increased after the product launch. This claim is not supported because the data shows only what happened after the launch, not why it happened. This claim is not supported because the data only shows what happened after the launch, not why it happened. Timing alone does not prove causation. This claim may sound reasonable, but check what the data actually shows. This claim is not supported because the data shows revenue, not profit. Now let's examine why this claim is not supported by the data. This claim is not supported because the data does not show customer preferences. Data can show what changed, but it does not always show why it changed. Let's pause here and clearly review what you've learned so far. In the first half of this video, you worked with real business data and evaluated several different claims. Instead of relying on intuition or what sounded reasonable, you practiced asking a much more careful question. What does the data actually show? You also learned to slow down and ask what the data does not show. For example, does it show causation, or does it only show that something changed over time? Does it measure profit, customer satisfaction, or preferences, or does it only measure revenue? You saw that many claims can sound convincing, but they go beyond the evidence provided. The key skill is not to prove something true, but to avoid claiming more than the data supports. When several choices are given, the best supported claim is the one that stays closest to the data, without adding assumptions. This way of thinking is exactly what the SAT tests in data analysis questions. Now that you've reviewed this reasoning, it's time to apply it yourself. Let's move on to some practice questions, starting with a beginner-level example. Let's start with a beginner-level practice question. Take a moment to read the question carefully. Focus only on what the data shows, not on assumptions or explanations. You have 60 seconds. Pause the video and think about which claim is best supported by the data. Let's review this question carefully and make sure the reasoning is clear. Your goal was to choose the claim that is best supported by the data shown. That means you should pick the statement that matches the graph directly, and avoid statements that require extra information the graph does not provide. First, what does the graph actually show? It shows total monthly revenue over 6 months. During the first 3 months, revenue is relatively stable, and during the next 3 months, revenue increases each month. Based on that, the correct answer is D. The company's total revenue increased during the 6-month period. This is supported because it describes exactly what the graph shows, nothing more. Now let's see why the other choices are not supported. Choice A says a new strategy caused the revenue to increase. The graph does not mention any strategy, and it does not show cause and effect. Even if revenue increased, the data does not tell us why it increased. So we cannot claim that a strategy caused it. Choice B says customers were more satisfied during the last 3 months. Satisfaction is not measured anywhere on this graph. We would need survey results, ratings, complaints, or some direct measure of satisfaction. Since none of that information is provided, this claim is not supported. Choice C says the company became more profitable over time. Profit depends on both revenue and costs. This graph shows revenue only. If costs increased at the same time, profit might stay the same or even decrease. Because we are not given any cost information, we cannot conclude anything about profit. So the best supported claim is the one that stays closest to the evidence, choice D. Let's try an intermediate level practice question. Pay close attention to what is being measured, and what information is missing from the data. Let's carefully go through this question and make sure the reasoning is clear. The data reports the average monthly revenue per store over a 6-month period. During the last 3 months, this average increased. At the same time, several low-performing stores were closed. The key point is to focus on exactly what is being measured. The data measures an average per store, not total revenue, and not the performance of individual stores. The correct answer is C. The average revenue per store was higher during the last 3 months. This statement is directly supported by the data. The company reported an increase in the average value being measured, and choice C simply restates that fact without adding assumptions. Now let's examine why the other choices are not supported. Choice A says that most stores increased their revenue. However, an increase in the average does not tell us how individual stores performed. Some stores could have improved, others could have stayed the same or declined. Because individual store data is not provided, this claim is not supported. Choice B claims that the company's overall revenue increased. But total revenue depends on both the number of stores and their revenue. Since some stores were closed and total revenue is not reported, we cannot conclude anything about overall revenue. Choice D says that closing stores caused the average revenue to increase. While store closures happened during the same period, the data does not show a causal relationship. Timing alone is not enough to prove causation. On SAT data analysis questions, the best answer is the one that stays closest to the data and avoids explanations that require additional information. That is why choice C is the best supported claim. Let's move on to an advanced level practice question. Multiple pieces of data are provided here, including total revenue, transaction count, and average revenue per transaction. Take your time to consider how these facts can all be true at the same time, and decide which claim is best supported by the data. Let's carefully review this advanced level question and make sure the logic is clear. You were given several pieces of information at the same time. Total revenue increased, the number of transactions increased sharply, and the average revenue per transaction decreased. The key challenge here is to recognize that all of these statements can be true simultaneously. None of them contradict one another. The correct answer is D. Total revenue increased even though average revenue per transaction decreased. This claim is fully supported by the data because it simply combines two facts that are explicitly stated. It does not explain why these changes happened, and it does not assume a cause and effect relationship. Now let's examine why the other choices are not supported. Choice A says that the new product attracted customers who spent less per transaction. While the average revenue per transaction decreased, the data does not tell us who the customers were or why their spending changed. We are not given information about customer behavior or motivation. Because that explanation goes beyond the data, this claim is not supported. Choice B claims that the company's profitability increased after the product launch. Profit depends on both revenue and costs. The data includes no information about costs, margins, or expenses. Even if revenue increased, profit could have decreased or stayed the same. Without cost data, we cannot make any claim about profitability. Choice C states that the increase in transactions caused total revenue to rise. Although both increased during the same period, timing alone does not prove causation. The data shows correlation, not cause and effect. On advanced SAT data analysis questions, the best answer is often the one that accepts multiple facts at once without adding assumptions or explanations. That is why choice D is the claim best supported by the data. Let's summarize what you practiced in this lesson. In business data analysis, the most important skill is not calculation, but careful reasoning. Data can tell you what happened, but it does not automatically explain why it happened. An increase in an average does not describe how every individual performed. Multiple trends can occur at the same time without contradicting each other. And just because two changes happen together, that does not mean one caused the other. On the SAT, the strongest answer is usually the one that stays closest to the data and avoids assumptions that are not supported. That habit of careful reasoning is what SAT data analysis is really testing.